We're live.
Hello, hello.
As you can tell, we are not in our normal habitat. We are at my cousin's house. She's letting us use her internet because we are in Benton County, Tennessee, and there is just not a lot of internet to go around out here.
Yeah.
So we're at her house using her internet. So
when you're in the boonies, you got to share internet on a party line. Anybody remember party lines?
Yeah, so that's where we are. If it looks like, who are these kids? These are my cousins in this picture right here. So,
and they're just as cute in real life.
Yes, they are. Oh, they're little here. They're much bigger than that now.
No. Well, we're glad to be back for the next edition of Monday Night Live.
Yes, we are.
I'm Dr. Ken Berry. I'm a family physician, and this is my lovely boss, assistant, and wife, Neisha, Nurse Neisha,
also nurse,
aka Neisha Loves It.
Yeah. I'm a registered nurse. I've been in nursing since I was 18 years old. I started out as a CNA, worked my way through LPN school, worked my way through RN school, and I've done everything from geriatrics to labor and delivery and work in the nursery. So we've both dabbled in a lot of healthcare in our time.
We've been dabbling for a minute.
Yeah.
And we've practiced in all different kinds of venues. I was an emergency room doc for 5 or 6 years. Practiced in the clinic, spent time in the intensive care unit, spent time in cardiac step down. Neisha has done geriatric nursing.
Geriatric, rheumatology. I was a prison nurse for a time at the
hardcore.
At the high-rise side of Riverbend in Nashville, where I worked on death row. Labor and delivery, like I said, dermatology, I've done a lot. But most of it was in geriatrics, in long-term care, and labor and delivery. So those are my two favorites.
Absolutely. And tonight we're going to be talking about salt. The good, the bad, the ugly. Is it dangerous? Is it mandatory? Is it safe? Is it yucky? Let's talk about all things salt. And we're going to tell you a few key tidbits about salt. And then we're going to answer a bunch of your questions about salt. So if you have an uncle or an aunt or a brother or a sister who says, "Don't eat salt, salt's bad for you," right now, you can start a watch party. You can share this with them. You can go get them by the hair of the head and set them down and say, "Hey, watch this video. This is going to help you understand the truth about salt in the human diet."
Also, I'd like to point out we are live at 6 Central Standard Time tonight. We are usually live at 7, but our daughter, Abby Grace, is giving away her Fairest of the Fair crown tonight and doing a little speech, so we didn't want to miss that. So usually we're here at 7.
We'll be at the fair if you need us. But so we're an hour early, usually at 7 p.m. Central Standard every Monday night. Now, do me 2 favors. Number 1, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. What city, what state, what country. And if you've never commented on a Facebook or YouTube video before, now's your chance to break the ice. Tell me where you're watching from. That's number 1. And number 2, there are millions of people in the world that think that 1 grain of salt will kill you. That 1 grain of salt will raise your blood pressure and you'll have a heart attack and die. That's not true. Help us to spread this message by sharing this video. You can start a watch party on Facebook and invite your aunt and uncle and your brother and sister who all say salt's bad for you. On YouTube, you can click the share button and share this anywhere you can share a video. Please do that for us so that we can help more people understand that salt is not the enemy.
All right. So,
are
you sure that salt is not the enemy?
I am quite sure.
What gives you the right to say that?
Yeah. So with one caveat. Okay.
I see.
Yes. If you're currently eating a very high carbohydrate diet and your blood sugar spiking up multiple times a day and your insulin levels chronically high and you're chronically inflamed because you're eating the standard American diet or the standard Western diet, then eating too much salt might actually raise your blood pressure. And anytime your blood pressure is elevated, that does increase your risk of having a heart attack or a stroke. So in that one situation, if you're eating a high carbohydrate diet filled with sugar and grains and vegetable oils, then yeah, you probably should limit your salt intake. But my favorite thing about the ketovore, carnivore diet is that I get to eat as much salt as I enjoy. Because when you cut the carbohydrates down, and some people cut them down under 100 total grams a day. Some people go to 50. Some people go to 20. Some people lower. But when you cut the carbohydrates down to the point where your blood sugar is not spiking anymore and your insulin levels back down to normal, all of a sudden eating as much salt as you enjoy. Now, I'm not talking about just taking the lid off the shaker and just downing the whole thing. That'd be dumb. Plus, it wouldn't taste good. But salting your food to taste, so it tastes delicious.
I mean, I do that.
Well,
but
you
I
do,
do
yeah.
it with Redmond's real salt.
Yes, definitely.
There's a difference between the table salt that you buy from the grocery that has the umbrella
Yeah.
grill on it. Those have microplastics. They're not truly the kind of salt that we're talking
Right.
about you should be eating.
Right. And let's talk about salt quality, because that's
I just
important.
wanted to make sure that people know that when you're eating good quality salt,
That's right. That makes it even more
it's a
important.
big difference. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And so when you're eating a low carb diet, your insulin levels back down to normal. And so when you eat salt, it's going to have no effect on your blood pressure whatsoever. And most people, when they go keto or carnivore, they notice that in the first week or two of that diet, they lose anywhere from 5 to 20 pounds really quickly. That's all the fluid that you were holding from the inflammation and from the chronically high insulin levels. That was making you hold all that extra fluid. And when you eat too much salt in that environment, yeah, you can raise your blood pressure. But once you're fat adapted on keto, ketovore, or carnivore, you get to eat salt to taste. If it doesn't taste salty enough, put some more salt on it. You're welcome. Now let's talk about salt quality.
Yeah, so salt quality is something that not a lot of people really think about. They think salt is salt, and as long as it's salty, then that's really all that matters. But that's not true at all. In fact, it's more than not true. It's kind of dangerous if we just consume the kind of salts that we are used to, that are at the restaurants, on the table, Umbrella Girl, which is Morton's salt.
Morton's, yeah.
Things like that. They are, it's proven that there are microplastics in there, and none of us need to be ingesting that.
Yeah, both microplastics and nanoplastics, which are even smaller. They're so small that most water filters cannot even filter this plastic out of your water. And that's why the nanoplastics are able to get into the Umbrella Girl salt. Is when they're evaporating the salt that comes from our modern ocean, it's going to contain microplastics and nanoplastics. There's not a filter on the earth. I mean, you could distill the water, but they're not going to do that. But it would still, even if they did, the water wouldn't have microplastics, but the salt still would. And so any salt that you buy in the store, they did a study, and like 91% of the brands had microplastics and nanoplastics in them. What these plastics do is they mess with your hormones, and not in a good way. Okay. So if you go to a restaurant, I mean, restaurant owners are pretty hard hit right now. Any way they can save money, they're going to save money. And so can you even fault them for buying the cheapest salt they can find?
And it is. The last few restaurants we've been to, they literally brought us the little paper packets of salt to the table, which we carry around Redmond's. They have the refillable little ones that you can put in your purse or your pocket. And that's what we carry with us, so that we have salt, that we know where it came from.
So no matter where we go in the world, we've got our real salt, and we know exactly where this came from. We've been down in the mine, 400 feet under the surface.
We've licked the wall.
Neisha licked the wall. I didn't do it, but she did, because I thought it would be bad manners.
But the reason we love Redmond's is because we know where it's sourced. We know there's no additives. The company is they'll give you all the information that you want, and it's local to us. So we live in the United States. Utah is in the United States, and it's a Dead Sea that this salt comes from. So there's no pollutions in there. But that's not the only brand. There are brands.
Yeah, every continent.
Australia,
every continent has their real salt. So if you live in Asia or Europe, you should probably use real pink Himalayan salt, because it comes from deep under the Himalayan mountains. There are no microplastics. There's none of the leftover mess from Chernobyl or from Japan when they had the nuclear meltdown. None of that stuff is in the ancient oceans that are under hundreds of feet of mountain or bentonite clay. Those salts are protected. But for an American, somebody in the United States, to be getting pink Himalayan sea salt, just imagine that's got to come over all across the ocean on a big cargo ship. You're basically wasting a lot of fuel to get that salt here, when we've got the best salt in the world right here on our continent.
Now, we'll say, when you first start eating Redmond's real salt, you'll find that there's grit. That's not
Let's
sand.
talk about that. It's sand,
grit.
right?
No,
it's not sand.
No, it's minerals, which is a good thing. And after a point, you don't even notice that anymore, because you're so used to, this is what it should be like. You're just so used to salt that just melts.
Right.
But
and so Umbrella Girl salt is processed. So the only thing that's left is sodium and chloride. That's it. And then they add some aluminum, And then they add some sugar. Yeah, and they use a funny word for it. It's called dextrose. But that's glucose. That's just sugar. And many, many salt companies put a little dextrose in their salt so that it won't stick together. But salt is made to stick together. That's normal. It attracts water. But when you get Redmond's real salt, or any real salt that comes from under the ground, it's going to have sodium, definitely. It's going to have chloride, definitely. But it's going to also have minerals. And so that's what Neisha's talking about, the little grit that some people think is sand. It's actually minerals, because each mineral dissolves in water at a different rate. And so you might be crunching on a little piece of magnesium or manganese, who knows, but it is a natural mineral that your body needs.
It's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
It's what Martha Stewart says. It's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
Yeah. Margarita says, so there's a chance my Redmond salt might have some of Neisha's DNA in it.
A small but real chance.
The cool thing about salt is that it is a natural, like it cleans.
Yeah, it's antimicrobial.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's really cool. So even
not
if
that Neisha has any germs, but if she did.
And also this was 2 years ago that happened.
Yeah. They probably wiped the area down when we left.
Jackie says, Dr. Berry, I have borderline high blood pressure. Should I omit salt from my diet?
100% no. Jackie, is that right?
It looks like Jackie.
Okay.
I think it's Jackie. It's spelled very cool.
Okay. So Jackie, if you're still eating a high carb diet, and so you need to download a macro tracker on your phone if you've not done this yet. And for the next 2 or 3 weeks, figure out how many total grams of carbohydrates you're eating a day. If you're eating over 100 a day and you have borderline high blood pressure, then you may need to limit salt. But once you've got your carbohydrate intake under 100 total grams a day, it's going to help keep your blood sugar normal, and it's going to help keep your insulin level normal. Now, 100 may not do it for you. You may have to go down to 50, but at some level of low carbohydrate, you can eat as much salt as you want. But I don't want you to be eating some fake salt that's got all this other crap in it. I want you to be eating real salt.
So Jennifer wants to know, what about kosher salt? Is that okay?
Yeah, kosher salt is absolutely fine if it does not come from our modern oceans. And many kosher salts are evaporated, and then they flake it in a special way, and then it's taken care of by the rabbi, and then it's kosher. Redmond's actually has a kosher salt that's 100% kosher, that they have taken care of in the biblical manner so that it's kosher. And a lot of people actually like the kosher salt
because my mom likes the kosher.
It's got like a different flake to it. It's not granular; it's more flaky. Yeah.
And it's really good to season steaks with. Coming up on my YouTube channel, I'm going to show you guys how we make our steaks, because you asked that a lot, and that has a lot to do with it. The flakes.
The kosher salt.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, kosher salt's fine, but it matters. And see, people don't study salt like we do. So you're not salt nerds.
We're salt
and so you would think, well, kosher salt, that probably comes from a specific place. No, kosher salt can come from anywhere. It just means that it's been taken care of by the rabbis to make it kosher. But it has to be, it matters where your salt comes from. So if it's evaporated out of the modern ocean, it's going to have nanoplastic, regardless if it's kosher or not. That's not okay. You don't want that.
Okay. Noah wants to know, do you own Redmond's? I wish.
No.
If we owned a salt mine,
no.
I would never leave it. I would be in there all the time, licking the walls. Yeah. No, we don't. We just found it throughout our keto journey, and the people there are just really nice and reached out to us and were like, "Hey, would you like to come tour the mines?" We were like, "Yes, please." And so we did, and now we have a really good relationship with them.
And we have an affiliate relationship with them, no doubt. And we have links down to the salt down in the show notes on Facebook and YouTube. But we were talking about Redmond's real salt for how many years before we ever had an affiliate relationship? 2 years?
We didn't know that this was even in Utah. We just knew that
we just knew it was
good
great.
salt.
Yeah, exactly.
I will say, though, our links to the bundles, a lot of you guys were trying to buy, and you said it was out of stock. The seasoning salt was out of stock, but it should be back. They told us either this week or next week by Tuesday, hopefully. So if you click on those links and it says sold out, just keep checking back in the next few days. It should be back in stock. And you can get these little things and the salt rocks and a whole variety pack of their other salts, because they have lemon pepper and garlic and onion. Like, they don't just have plain salt. Yeah.
Now let's talk for just a second about sodium and chloride, because there are so many people that their doctor or their dietitian has demonized. Oh, sodium is the literal devil. Do not eat any sodium. This is 100% untrue. The human body cannot function without a certain amount of sodium. Your body controls your sodium level very, very exquisitely and tightly. It keeps it in a very narrow perimeter. And anytime your body spends all the energy to control something like that, that means that's important. And indeed, your heart won't function properly, your kidneys won't function properly, your liver won't function properly without enough sodium in your diet. So I saw a question go by. Somebody said, what about low salt or new salt, which is potassium chloride? That's totally fine. That's good. But you still got to have a source of sodium in your diet. Now let's talk about chloride, because a lot of people equate chloride with chlorine, like it's in the city water, right? It does come from the same element, but it's not exactly the same thing. Chloride and salt is very, very good for you. Again, your body controls this in your serum very, very tightly, which means that it's important. You have to have a good source of sodium and chloride in your body on almost a daily basis if you want to remain a living human.
Gloria wants to know, what is the recommended quantity of salt that someone should consume to meet electrolyte needs on a ketogenic diet?
That's a great question, and I'm going to answer your question a little bit obtusely, but when you hear me out, you'll realize it's not obtuse at all. So let me ask you first a rhetorical question. How many times are you breathing a minute right now? Oh, you don't know? Are you not tracking that? Are you not making yourself breathe 20 times a minute? No, duh, you're not doing that. You haven't thought a thing about how many times a minute you breathe until I brought it up. Because the front part of our brain, the conscious part, that's the part that wants to track and wants to measure. But there's this part in the back that we call the reptilian brain, the brain stem. That's the part of your brain that's in charge of how many times a minute you breathe and how many times a minute your heart beats and how much salt you need and how to know if you need more salt. It's your taste buds. Your taste buds have got this. Just like you're breathing 16 times a minute right now and you're doing fine, your heart's beating 60 to 80 times a minute and you're fine. If you start to crave salt, that's your brain stem saying, hey, dummy, you need more sodium and chloride. If you salt something, it's like, oh, that's too salty. That's your brain stem telling you, dummy, that's too much salt. You don't need that much, okay? Your taste buds, that's what they're there for. Your salt receptors are there to tell you if you need more salt or not. So if your steak does not taste salty enough, that's your body telling you, put more salt on there. More kosher Redmond's real salt.
We salt everything.
Yeah, we salt everything.
We salt our coffee.
Yep.
We salt our steak. We salt literally everything.
Yeah, human beings are by design low carbohydrate mammals. If you feed us too many carbohydrates, we get sick. We start to get overweight, we get obese, we get prediabetes, we get type 2 diabetes, we get fatty liver, we start to get cataracts, we start to have skin problems. But when you feed us a low carbohydrate diet, we become healthier. It's almost by magic, but it's not magic because you stop poisoning yourself with the carbohydrates. It's the same way with the salt. We are salty mammals by design. If you prick your finger and taste the blood, it's salty. Does that mean you've eaten too much salt? No, that means you're a salty mammal. And so you need to let your taste buds guide you. Don't be measuring salt and saying, I'm going to have 2.5 tablespoons a day. No, you don't. You're trying to use your forebrain. You need to use your brainstem. Let your taste buds tell you if you need more salt.
Monica wants to know, what about fluid retention and salt?
Yeah. When you are eating a high carbohydrate diet and your insulin level is chronically high, you're going to be holding anywhere from 5 to 20 pounds of extra salt. And in that scenario, if you eat too much salt, you might actually hold extra fluid. But if you're eating a low carbohydrate diet, you can use as much salt as tastes good to you, and it will never cause you to have edema or swollen ankles. Dr. James D. Nicolantonio has a wonderful book if you're scared to death of salt because your doctor or your dietitian scared you. It's called The Salt Fix. He is a PhD researcher, professor at the Mayo Clinic, and he completely destroys the myth that salt is bad for your heart, that salt causes high blood pressure, that salt causes heart failure. None of this stuff is true. And he actually talks about a study in the book. People with heart failure, they do worse on a low sodium diet. They actually do better, live longer, and have more symptom-free days if they get enough salt in their diet. So even people with heart failure, you've got to have sodium and chloride or you will die.
Get that book. It's a very good book. You
Yeah.
can get it on Audible now too. So if you don't have time to like actually sit down and read, you can listen to it on your way to work or while you're washing the dishes or
Yep.
whatever. It's really good information.
Yep. Somebody put a link to Dr. D's book in the comments if you've already read it. So
Somebody
everybody
wants
can
to
check it out.
know, how did our ancestor get electrolytes? They didn't have packages of electrolytes.
Excellent
get
question.
those?
Excellent question. I love when people ask smart questions.
Good question.
So
Sorry, I didn't get your name.
100,000 years ago, what did we drink? Did we drink distilled water or reverse osmosis water? No.
Yeah.
We drank mud puddle water and stream water and river water and lake water and sometimes even ocean water.
And sometimes
And
blood.
sometimes blood. That's right. All these things are rich sources of electrolytes. And depending on the water supply, it can be a very good source of sodium and chloride as well. But all of our ancestors always ate the organs, the liver, the kidneys, the lungs, the heart. All these things are full of sodium because the animal's body's been storing that sodium because it needs it, right? And we also use the blood very, very often because it's full of sodium. That's where our ancestors got the electrolytes and the sodium and the chloride from.
And the minerals.
And the minerals. That's right. That's where they got them all from. So much of our food these days is devoid of the minerals that it used to contain. There's a study, I'm going to be doing a video shortly on my YouTube channel about comparing vegetables from the 1940s to the 2000s. And literally some of the vegetables are 40% less magnesium now than they had in 1940. 30% less potassium. And it's just crazy, right? And then the iodine levels are just super, super low these days in veg and in meat that used to be. Yeah, and everything. Yeah. For two reasons. First of all, the soils that we monocrop in have been depleted of all these electrolytes, these minerals. And so just because you go to the federal government's website and it says broccoli has this much potassium and this much magnesium, if there was no potassium and magnesium in the soil or the water that the broccoli grew in, it's not going to be in the broccoli. That's number one. And then number two, we've been breeding all of our produce to be big and beautiful. The farmers want to grow big broccoli and they want it to be beautiful broccoli. But nobody ever stopped, evidently one time, to think, should we breed for nutrition? Should we breed so that our broccoli or whatever is high in these minerals? Nobody ever thought of that, because when you go to the market, if you say, hey, this is high magnesium broccoli and it's janky looking, nobody gonna buy it. They want beautiful, big florets of broccoli. And so farmers have bred for big, beautiful produce, but they didn't breed for nutrition. And so because of that breeding, a lot of the produce and the meat just does not have the mineral content, the electrolyte content, or even the vitamin content that it did 60 or 70 years ago. And that's why I worked with Keto Chow to come up with a mineral drop that will replace all the minerals that just aren't in our food anymore. And I got a link down for that in the show notes on Facebook and YouTube. You can check that out. Caution, it's very salty. It's very minerally tasting because there's no sweeteners,
there's no flavors.
There's no flavors.
Here's
in
the thing. I think a lot of people don't realize you don't have to take the full dose at once.
That's right. Yeah.
You can just do a squirt in the morning in your coffee, do a little bit more in your eggs, do a little bit more in your tea or whatever.
All
beverage.
through the day, you can put a little squirt in
You
mineral
don't have
drops.
to like chug it.
Because that kind of mimics what our ancestors did.
Right.
Every time they drank from the river, they got some minerals.
That's how we use it. We don't just like take a shot.
Yeah. Every cup of coffee, I go squirt.
Although I did the other night, I had a leg cramp and I got up and I took a shot of it. And I'm not kidding you. Within seconds, my cramp was gone. Now, did it taste good? No.
Yeah.
I had to chase it
tasted great.
I had to chase it with water and it still was like, bleh. But you know what? Took care of my cramp.
Yeah, it's very salty.
Yeah.
But it's got potassium. It's got magnesium. It's got
really
all these things that are going to make leg cramps go away. Yeah, absolutely.
The only thing you need to supplement with the mineral drops is more salt.
Yeah.
But like we said, you need to be salting your food all day anyway. So you're going to get the extra salt that you need if you're salting your food appropriately.
Exactly.
And not being scared of the salt.
Don't be afraid of salt. It is your friend. Find another good question. They've been asking good questions tonight.
I think I'm doing a pretty good job finding good questions. This is a good one. Lacey says, if you take the new Keto Chow with iodine, do I need to quit taking Lugols?
You can.
Which is iodine, in case you didn't know, it's also iodine.
Lugol's 2% is potassium iodide and iodide. And you can stop using the Lugol's drops because a day supply of the mineral drops is going to have more than the daily RDI of iodine in it. It's going to have twice as much as the recommended daily intake. And so the mineral drops don't have as much. If you're using 2 or 3 drops of the Lugols, that's going to be more iodine than you get in the minerals. So you may have to still use 1 drop in addition, but almost every human's going to get enough daily iodine if they're eating real food, which is going to have some iodine, and then using your mineral drops, you're going to be getting your iodine every day.
Hey, John Doe. That was random. Right, let's see. This is an interesting question. Well, that's not what I meant to click on. Sometimes YouTube has a little... There we go. Oops, Ashley says, can you have a stroke if you eat too much salt?
That's a great question. If you're eating a low carbohydrate diet, then okay, so let me go back. The reason that eating too much salt will make you have a stroke is that if you're eating a high carbohydrate diet and you're very inflamed and your insulin level is chronically high, then when you eat too much salt in that situation, it makes your blood pressure go up. And anytime your blood pressure goes up, that increases your risk of heart attack and stroke, right? But if you're eating a low carb diet, 50 total grams of carbs or less a day, eating salt is not going to raise your blood pressure. And therefore, it's not that salt somehow magically makes you have a stroke. Salt in the old way of eating raises your blood pressure because you're already full of fluid because of all the hyperinsulinemia. And so that's why we thought that salt made you have a stroke. But now we're seeing all these hundreds of thousands of people eating keto or ketovore or carnivore, and they're eating way more salt now than they used to eat on their old diet. And their blood pressure is better now than it's been in 20 years. So it's becoming glaringly obvious that it wasn't the salt causing the high blood pressure. It was the carbohydrates keeping your insulin chronically high, which made you hold all this extra fluid. And we were just blaming it ignorantly on the salt. And I used to be one of these doctors back in 2003. I would tell you, hey, your ankles are swollen. You're eating too much salt. I didn't understand glucose and insulin and all that stuff back then like we do now.
Okay. It's a little off topic, but Dennis sent us a super chat, so we're going to say...
Thanks, Dennis.
Apple cider vinegar and lemon in water. Will that break my fast?
If you only put a drop or two of lemon juice for flavor, don't put the whole lemon in there, probably not. It's going to be a sweet taste or carbohydrates or protein. Those are the things that raise your insulin and break your fast.
Here's what the term is going around. Now, this has been brought to my attention because apparently I do this. I didn't know it had a name, but dirty fasting. So anything that is not strictly just water or black coffee, no sweetener, no cream, no bone broth, nothing but black coffee, black tea, or water is considered dirty fasting. So then you have this like gap where you can say, am I seeing the benefits I want to see while using apple cider vinegar and lemon? And if the answer is yes, then continue doing what you're doing. But if you stop or you stall, then you can just take it out and see how that goes.
Yep. Great strategy. Hey, thanks for the stars, guys, on Facebook. Thank you very much.
Good morning from Indonesia.
Hey, Indonesia in the house.
All right, this is a common question we get asked a lot. Can you get too much electrolytes? I drink 1 drink a day and have to run to the bathroom in about 20 minutes. It's horrible.
Yeah, it is possible to consume too many electrolytes. And your body, again, is going to tell you. And so for many people, if they consume too much magnesium or even potassium, your body will let you know by giving you diarrhea. And indeed, magnesium is an excellent a laxative if you take too much. And so, if you're constipated, you can on purpose take too much magnesium. That will fix your constipation. I promise. Okay. But a lot of people, when we're trying to figure out how many electrolytes should I, 1 glass, 2 glasses, if you start to have loose bowel movements, then you're probably getting too many electrolytes, and you can back it up a little bit.
This is a good one from Anna. Anna wants to know, why do kidney doctors say to stay away from keto because eating too much meat is bad for your kidneys and salt is a big no-no?
Yep.
Are they wrong in
Yes,
saying this?
They are 100% completely wrong. And now I don't expect you to blindly believe me. What I want you to do the next time you go see your kidney specialist, when they say meat will hurt your kidneys, I want you to say, doctor, I trust your opinion, but could you please have your nurse, I know you're busy, have your nurse or one of your assistants print me out the research studies that proves that eating meat will harm my kidneys. And then your doctor will probably say something like, you want to be the doctor or you want me to do it?
Yeah, I don't know what a doctor would say.
A doctor would say, well, I mean, it's just common knowledge. Everybody knows red meat's bad for your kidneys.
That's hard for me to think that a doctor's going to say that.
100% they would say
apparently.
that. And then you're going to say, well, I understand. I'm just a dumb patient. I don't know these things. I would just love to just look at the study. I have a cousin who's a doctor who can interpret for me. Could you have your assistant print those studies out for me real quick? And you can mail them to me. I know you're busy.
You could also just Google Dr. Fung, who is a
kidney specialist
who recommends intermittent fasting and ketogenic lifestyle to all of his patients. And he encourages salt intake and
meat intake
because that is healthy for the kidneys.
It's good for your kidneys. Your kidneys are made of meat. Eating meat is not bad for your kidneys. This is a myth that's been out there that too much protein will hurt your kidneys. It's been in the medical mythology for 10 years. I can remember standing in the cubby at the clinic before the fire years ago, and I was like, why do people keep saying that? I'm going to look into that. And I looked it up, and in literally article after article, the myth that won't die in medicine. So if you don't believe me, just Google, will protein hurt my kidneys, myth. And then you can read article after. I'm talking about articles on WebMD and PubMed. Well, WebMD, yeah. They've got articles about this because any doctor who's looked into this knows it's complete and utter myth. There's no truth to it at all. There's no research that backs that up. Salt is good for your kidneys. Electrolytes are good for your kidneys.
What's bad for your kidneys?
Sugar, starches, carbohydrates. Too many carbohydrates will destroy your kidney function. That's why there are so many people on dialysis now from diabetic nephropathy. That means that the diabetes has destroyed their kidneys. That's why so many people are on dialysis, not from eating too much meat or eating too much salt. Excellent question.
Trapper Dan. Hey, Trapper Dan. What's up?
Trapper Dan.
Your name. What about babies and salt intake? We have a 15-month-old. We salt Beckett's food to taste, just like we do our own. He loves salt. We have the Redmond's crystals.
Yep.
I think they call them crystals. We call them rocks. And he will go get it, and he'll suck on it. Like candy.
And when he's had enough salt, what does he do?
Throw it
he
down.
Just throws it down and goes about his business.
But he eats exactly what we eat. If our food is salted, his food is salted the exact same way that ours is. If he doesn't like it, he won't eat it. But I've yet to see him push away from it.
And think about this just from a very common sense standpoint. Let's go back in time 50,000 years. And so me and Neisha, we've got an almost 12-month-old. If we were 50,000 years in the past, what would Beckett eat? Would I run down to the caveman grocery and get him some Gerbers, strained peas and peach cobbler? No. 12-month-old Beckett would eat exactly what we ate. Me or Neisha might chew it up a little for him if it was tough, and then we'd put it in his mouth. He would eat literally, bite for bite, exactly what we ate. He would be getting exactly as much salt as we would get. And that same common sense logic goes for your 18-month-old as well, 15. and for our 15-month-old, and then everybody else's kid of any age. If your baby is starting to wean off the breast onto solid food, you can salt their food to your taste because that baby came from you. That baby is you for all practical purposes. That baby needs as much salt as you do. And when you check a baby's sodium level in their blood, God forbid if your baby gets sick and the doctor has to check blood, their sodium level is over 100, and it is very tightly controlled, just like in adults. They have to have that sodium or their little heart can't beat properly.
If you watch my YouTube channel, it's different than his. I have my own, but I do what we
Hers
eat.
Is better.
Yeah. I do what we eat in a day vlogs, and I show what we feed Beckett, and you can see me salting with Redmond salt his food at every meal that he has.
Yeah.
And that's the only salt that we use.
And we've been doing that for him since he was 5 or 6 months old when he first started nibbling on 4 months. Yeah. When he started eating scrambled egg and avocado. What else?
Also, Beckett is walking.
Now's the time, guys. If you got a question, put them in the comments.
You just acted like I didn't say what I just said.
I was thinking, Beckett is walking. He's 11 months, almost 12 months, and he's walking around.
He's not almost 12 months. It's not even October yet. October 21st.
Are you telling me not to rush it?
Yeah.
She doesn't want him to be a year old because that means he's growing up.
So he just kind of stood up and took off yesterday. So That's happening.
It's so cool. He couldn't do it on his own, but when he's holding a ball, it's like the ball distracts him, and then he can walk. But if he puts the ball down, then he goes back to crawling.
Today he didn't do that.
Did he not?
No, he's just
he's
walking
getting better.
now.
Yeah, excellent.
Beautiful and amazing mom. Hey, I think you're a patron.
Hey, thank you for that.
Isn't that the one that showed up today?
Oh, yeah,
Right?
it is.
I think
Yeah,
you're a
thanks so
patron.
much for being a patron.
Is the salt in bacon bad salt? If so, why is it okay to consume that as much as we want? Good question.
Yeah, and so it depends on what salt they used.
And how do we know?
We don't know. And so so what would happen is if you're making bacon, right? Hint, hint, winky, winky. If you're making bacon, you're going to use the cheapest salt that you can, of course, yes. So is the salt they use to salt the bacon with perfect? I don't know. Probably not. But you've still got to eat enough salt, and you've got to eat some kind of food. And if bacon's one of your favorite foods, if you're getting the majority of your salt from Redmond's or the real salt from your continent, whatever that happens to be, and you're eating a few pieces of bacon every day, that's way better than if every grain of salt you get comes from the modern oceans. So yeah, it may not be great, but you're still getting the bulk of your salt from a real quality salt.
And that goes for pork belly.
Yeah.
Anything like that. Yeah.
And so there's a big thing that we really stress in everything we do. Do the best you can do. Do the best you can afford. And so, if you own your own bacon processing plant, I guess you could go in there and say, I want you to only use Redmond's on this bacon. Boom, problem solved. But until the such time that so many people are demanding that the bacon people use Redmond's, which could happen if enough of you guys make calls and send emails, that could absolutely happen, then we got to just do the best we can. And we got to have some bacon. And if it's got bad salt in it, it's not the end of the world, because the majority of our salt is coming from real salt.
I wonder if we're going to have a hog slaughtered soon.
100%. Yeah, we'll take him Redmond's and he can salt. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Somebody said, why do you contradict your husband so much? Because I can.
She gets sued. Did you contradict me?
No. I think I probably asked you a question trying to be facetious.
Yeah, she gets to do that.
But actually,
she got papers on it, so she can do that. Yeah.
Let's see.
Not a good question, but
Raffoon. Any issues with garlic salt? Depends on the brand.
Where did the salt come from?
Yeah.
Right.
So Redmond's makes garlic salt.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure on most continents, the real salt manufacturer, and he may not say real salt, it may just be Himalayan peak sea salt. I'm sure they have garlic salt and onion salt and all that stuff, but just make sure to know where the salt itself came from. If it came from the modern oceans and was evaporated, it's going to have nanoplastics in it. But if it comes from deep under a mountain or deep under bentonite clay, the nanoplastics couldn't get to it because the oceans millions of years ago didn't have nanoplastics in them.
Yeah. And I think Redmond's gets their seasonings actually locally.
Yeah, they try to get everything they can locally.
Be local.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let me just say this. I want every one of you to buy everything you can local as well. That's how you vote with your dollars. Buy local eggs, buy local butter, and maybe that right now, that's all you can get local. You can't get local bacon or local beef. But if you look around enough, if you ask on your Facebook page, hey, who knows where I can get some local beef? Bet me within 50 miles of your house, there is a beef farmer, there is a chicken farmer, there's somebody that is letting their cows and their chickens run around in the pasture and eat bugs and grass like they're supposed to. The more you buy that, the cheaper it'll get as time goes on. And the bigger the demand is, those farmers will actually increase production in a nice, sustainable, ethical manner. But you got to eat your meat. And so always look for local. That's my local plug. I'm sorry.
I want to interrupt you.
Don't be contradicting me.
I am the wife. I need to be submissive.
That's right.
This is me being submissive.
That's right.
Another thing to look for in garlic salt is, or any seasoning really, if you flip it over, a lot of times they'll have dextrose in there, and that's to keep the seasoning from sticking
that's
to
sugar.
each other. But that's sugar.
Yeah.
Redmond's, if you get it and you're in a humid place, like Tennessee is very humid.
Yep.
It's not really the salt as much as the garlic salt and the onion salt. It's all organic.
Yep.
It will clump. But if you just get a knife and break it up.
Yeah, you do this.
Bang it on the table.
And this actually has garlic salt in it because that's my
does?
favorite. Yeah, I poured the other back in the container and I got garlic salt. You just do this. It's not the end of the world. Look how hard this is. Boom, 10 seconds. Now I have salt. You don't have to put sugar in your salt to keep it from clumping. I mean, we can actually big whoop. Yeah.
Just don't do it too hard.
Yeah.
It's
It's glass, not plastic.
No, it's not.
Yeah. That's glass.
No, it's not. We have this conversation all the time.
Like it must be polycarbonate. It's very
hard.
Yeah, very hard.
Yeah. Tommy wants to know, I have heart palpitations on keto, but not on carnivore. Is this because of electrolytes?
It's probably because of electrolytes and salt. Yeah. You're probably getting more on carnivore, especially if you're including organ meat, then you're really upping your electrolytes.
How do you balance potassium and sodium?
You don't worry about it.
I can't pronounce that.
You make sure that you've got good sources of all of them. So you're going to use your Redmond's real salt. That's going to give you all the sodium and chloride that you need. And then you're going to use something like the mineral drops or something like Keto Chow's electrolyte drops. And when your body, okay, if you get a little bit too much magnesium on a given day, do you know what your body's going to do with that? You're going to pee it in a toilet. It's gonna go through you. That's how your body controls your levels so tightly. It'll store some in your bones. It'll store some in your muscles. And when those areas are full and there's no more room for storage, you urinate it out. That's how your body does this. So you don't have to worry about balancing that stuff. Your body will do it for you if you've got good sources of salt and minerals.
Bob.
Hey, Bob.
Good question, Bob. Should I buy a huge block of deer salt lick from Tractor Supply? Well, fun fact, Redmond's makes one. It's called a trophy rock, and they're actually sending us one because if you guys didn't know, I hunt. Ken does not hunt, but me and my dad do. He is like how many times?
Oh, like a ton when I was younger.
Like a ton?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah.
When's the last time you went hunting?
35 and a half years ago. Yeah,
so
but I'm going to get started again.
But he's agreed. If I let him buy this bow, that he'll go hunting with me. And so we're going to get a salt rock. It's called a trophy rock from Redmond's and put it out there. But it's the same salt.
Yeah, it comes from the same exact mine.
And just broke it up. It's the same.
Yeah, wash it off because no telling what the co-op did to it, right?
Well, it comes in plastic.
Yeah, yeah, but you can rinse that off. Boom. Yeah, that's real salt.
I thought that was a good question.
That is a good one.
What about when fasting? What exactly, Mark, about salt during fasting?
You still need sodium, chloride, magnesium, potassium, and all of your minerals. You still need all those, and that's where the salt and the electrolyte drops and the mineral drops come in so handy because you can put a little squirt of and so the mineral drops have all the electrolytes in them already in the right ratios. So you just put a squirt of the mineral drops, and boom, you don't break your fast. You're getting all your sodium, chloride, magnesium, potassium, and all the minerals just by drinking your fasting drink.
Bruce. Hey, Bruce. I think I like that name. If we have another boy, I'm going to name him Bruce.
You like
Bruce
that? Berry?
That sounds good.
Bruce DeBerry. That's actually a family name way back.
It got changed, just like Doherty. It used to be.
But there are a lot of Bruces.
Yeah.
Like a lot of Bruces.
If someone is 3 to 7 days at a time fasting with a refeed that consists of garbage and it's still losing weight and feeling good, what are the health risks? That's a good question.
Yeah. So the health risks are when they do refeed, because the fasting is supremely healthy and it will cancel out a lot of the risk. No doubt about it. And they're going to lose weight. But when they refeed with junk food, frankenfood, crap, they're immediately inflaming their body. They're inflaming their gut, possibly their joints, their skin, their brain, their heart, everything, kidneys. And so even though they're doing a great thing by doing the fasting, they're undoing a lot of the benefits by eating the crap. Yeah, but you'll still lose weight if you practice that. But we want you to lose weight, but ultimately we want you to be healthy, really healthy.
Health optimization is way more than weight loss. Weight loss is just like the cherry on top of the.
So if that person switched they were doing their fasting, but then they refed with keto or carnivore, their health would literally go through the roof. It would be so good.
Yeah. Weight loss isn't everything.
That's 100% true.
Dr. Q68. This isn't a salt-related question, but I thought that we could touch on it because it's kind of important considering I take this. What do you think about LDN, which is low-dose naltrexone, for Hashimoto's? I have Hashimoto's, and my provider, who isn't him, in case you didn't know.
I'm a consultant.
He's a consultant. I'm
Yeah.
married to him. He is not my provider. My actual provider put me on this a few weeks ago. So what do you think about it?
Well, I think it's very compelling. I actually use low-dose naltrexone for a couple of patients with multiple sclerosis in the practice. And I've read about its use for many, many different things, ranging from Hashimoto's to anxiety to I think it's definitely safe, and I think it's definitely worth looking into because you're not going to hurt yourself trying it.
Yeah. So she put me on half of a tab, and then I'll bump up to one tab. I'm going to do a video on my channel all about her recommendations for me. I did the Dunwoody lab for food sensitivity test. I'm going to be doing that on my channel. So if you have Hashimoto's or know someone who does, and you think that information will be helpful, make sure you send them to my channel because that'll be coming up this coming
And
week.
there's a link to her channel down in the show notes. Go ahead and subscribe right now because you'll forget. And then when she makes a video, you won't get a notification.
It's Neisha loves it. It's very easy.
Neisha loves it.
Don't forget the Ketorade. Congrats on being on the cover of Woman's World magazine.
Thank you.
Is saying goodness gracious really fast. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, so if you didn't know, Dr. Berry was on the cover of a magazine, a nationally syndicated magazine, Women's World. Yeah. It's at every grocery store in America, which is really crazy. So we're really proud of him. It's pretty cool.
Thank you, baby.
And
that was not very contradictory at all.
How did I contradict
you? You didn't. That's what I'm saying.
Oh. And yeah, that's really cool. So we're going to talk about Ketorade because it's the cheap electrolyte drink that he and I came up with a few years ago. If you go watch that video, please just ignore the fact that we say stuff about lemons and limes that is completely messed up. Just ignore that.
Comment on the video your opinion of what Neisha thinks about lemons and limes.
Don't, please. He told me it doesn't matter. We're going to redo it, and we're going to use the mineral drops.
That's on your channel or my channel?
That'll be on mine.
No, I mean the old Ketorade.
I don't know.
It's on my channel. You guys go watch it. It's the best
Please
ever.
Don't.
Please, go watch it.
Please don't. But that's a really good, cheap, easy way to get an electrolyte drink.
Yep. And you can use the mineral drops in making your Ketorade.
Well, we're going to do a video on that. But, for those of you who don't want to spend, because, electrolyte prepackaged, they're a little pricey. This is literally pennies per ounce.
Gallon,
so.
yeah.
Thanks for the super chats and the stars, guys. All right. Anita says, I just started Ketovore from being a vegan. Well, hello, welcome to the club. Welcome. For a year, find it very hard to digest meat and eggs. I feel like it's stuck in my chest for a few hours. I also have rosacea that has gotten much worse since starting Ketovore.
Yeah. Now, several things. First of all, if you're eating, and what was the name? Anita. So eating vegan for a few years, your stomach acid probably got very, very weak because your stomach acid is mainly meant to digest and break down meat. So it may take you a month or two to slowly increase the strength of your stomach acid again. And you want a very strong stomach acid. Now, if you're taking any kind of acid blocker like Prilosec, Nexium, ranitidine, Axid, Zantac, those things are blocking your stomach acid, and that may slow down your ability to digest and absorb all the great nutrition in meat. And that also could be the reason that your rosacea is flaring up, is because you're not getting the nutrition that you should be able to. Another common way on Ketovore that people notice a flare up of rosacea or psoriasis is if they're using rubs or sauces, condiments that are high carb, and you're not really thinking about those being such a great source of sugar and carbohydrates.
Since you've been vegan, you may have a sensitivity to dairy since you've been off of things, and dairy has sugar type qualities to it that could be flaring it up.
It could be the low fat, and so it's not the butter, it's not the fat in the dairy, it's the galactose, the lactose, and potentially the protein. Some people are sensitive to that. And then one more thing to look at is egg whites. It's never the yolk that people are sensitive to or that cause eczema flare-ups, but for some very few people, the whites can be a little inflammatory for them. And so you may have to stick with just full fat, the fat of dairy and the yolks of the eggs, and then give your stomach acid time to build up again. Stop taking any acid blockers.
She's not on meds.
Okay, good. And then that's that. One of those things is going to fix that problem. But it may take another month or two for your stomach with the chief cells and the parietal cells, to ramp back up and make your acid as strong as it should be. Good question.
Jackie says, my son and I have hypothyroid. Should we go keto or carnivore? Or you could just go ketovore.
Yeah, 100%. Any of those are going to give you, because regardless of what medical condition you have, you need to eat the proper human diet. You need to eat a diet that is rich in fatty acids, which come from fat, in amino acids, which come from protein, and in vitamins and in minerals. And so you need to eat all the foods that I talk about on my YouTube videos, and the foods that you can watch me and Neisha eat on Neisha's YouTube channel. Neisha loves it. You can watch what we eat, and the foods that we eat are very, very nutrient dense and simple and delicious. And no matter what medical condition you have, from heart failure to Hashimoto's to hypothyroid to erectile dysfunction, you need to eat a nutrient dense diet full of good foods. And so, yeah, absolutely. Neisha has Hashimoto's, which will lead to hypothyroidism eventually. And she had every single symptom of hypothyroid. And now she has no symptoms of hypothyroid.
Yeah, my provider, who isn't him, has said I'm in remission. I am no longer on any thyroid medication except for the low dose naltrexone, which really isn't a Hashimoto's medication. Yep. It's kind of like a supplement.
Yep. Now, I don't even know if anybody knows how it works. We think it works by kind of patting your immune system on the hand and saying, there, honey, calm down. Just be calm. It's fine. That's how we think it works, but we don't know for sure yet.
Yeah. I'm experimenting with
that. Yes,
Yes,
every human being, regardless of their medical condition, needs to eat the proper human diet, which is low carb, keto, ketovore, carnivore. That's the spectrum.
If you want to know what ketovore means, I have a whole video on my YouTube channel that explains and breaks down the meaning of ketovore. The short version is it's meat-based keto, meaning I eat 95% meat only, eggs, butter, and veg like once or twice a month, or the veg that I eat is like onion or garlic. It's more seasonings than actual salad and food, like actual veggie food. So I don't constrain myself to the carnivore context, because there's a little dogma over there, and I don't like that. So I have a whole video on my YouTube channel.
She just made up her own word.
No, I mean, it's been around.
It's working for a lot of people.
It's becoming more of a thing because carnivores are so like.
Yeah,
not all of them.
You looked at a vegetable. You're not carnivore.
They're not all like that.
No, that's true.
There's some.
That's true. Thank you.
All right. Somebody asked, did Granny Berry see your picture on the magazine?
So let me tell you what we did. I called my dad. She's staying with my dad right now. She was staying with us for a while, but now she's in Alabama with my dad and mom. And I called my dad and I said, hey, I'm going to be on this magazine. It should be out in stores in a couple of days. I want you to just don't tell Granny anything. I want you to take her to the store just to go shopping, right? And then go get her whatever. And then when you're in the checkout aisle, just casually point and say, look at that magazine. Who is that? And that's what they did. And Granny Berry about crapped her pants right in the middle of Walmart when she saw that. She said, well, what's his picture doing on there? That's a quote.
She still can't wrap her head around what we do. She's asks us all the time if he's working. Why isn't he working? We're like, Granny, he is working. It's just a different kind of work.
Yeah.
So funny. She just can't, like, she
tries
doesn't
to
understand.
She tries to loan me money. You need some money?
All the time.
No,
she's so sweet.
We're getting by.
She's worried about us all the time. All right, let's do one more good question. Somebody asked me, how much weight have I lost since the Ketorade video? I was probably 135, 140 in that video. But if you go whack on my channel like to 2 years ago, you can see.
What was your heaviest?
160-ish. I stopped admitting how much I weighed around.
You stopped talking about that.
Yeah, but the only reason I know that because I gave myself 155, but then I got an Apple Watch, and when I synced it was like your last weigh-in was 160, and I was like, oh, I bet that.
Thanks, Apple Watch.
I bet it was more than that, and I stopped recording.
And you got to understand, she's very small boned and 5'2"
on a good day.
So 165, you were pushing morbid obesity.
My BMI was 28.9, and like 29 is obese.
30. Yeah, 30 is obese.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So yeah. So she was, yeah.
And then I got pregnant after I lost all my weight and gained a lot while I was pregnant, actually. Even though it was keto, I had a lot of inflammation.
Yeah.
Like a lot.
Yeah.
Had a lot of stress during my pregnancy. So that's probably
yeah.
what it was. All right. Let's see. How long does it take for the mineral drops to work for leg cramps? Well, it depends.
It depends on how depleted your body is in minerals. Like I said earlier, your body's control mechanisms will keep the blood level of your minerals very tightly controlled. But in order to do that, sometimes if you're depleted, it'll pull the minerals from your bones, pull them from your muscles, and that's why you get the leg cramps. And that's why you can actually develop osteoporosis if your body's mechanisms pull too much boron and too much calcium out of your bones. You can actually develop osteoporosis. That's one of the many ways it can happen. So when you're putting the minerals back in, if you're severely depleted, it might take a few days for you to build back up your stores and then to actually your body to be able to call on that when it needs it. But the other night when Neisha was having a leg cramp, you did a shot of the mineral drops and it was how many minutes?
Not even a minute.
Not even a minute.
I thought, no, it'll be back.
And see, she eats ketovore, so she's eating very nutrient dense food with hopefully lots of minerals. Right. And then she's using the mineral drops. So she's already pretty well repleted. So she had a little dip in her levels, took a shot, boom, it was immediately corrected. Whereas if you're severely depleted, it might take a week of using the minerals before you get your levels up to where it'll work that fast for you. But I promise you, every time you get your minerals, you're healthier than you were before you got your minerals.
Okay, guys, that is it. We are going to the county fair to see Abby Graceberry give her crown away. She was fairest of the fair last year, so she has to give it away. And she's going to give a big speech because she's a senior, so this is her last pageant.
I'm so excited.
Deal.
I know.
And that's why we were an hour early this day.
This day is the dia.
It's the dia.
Yeah.
And that we're at my cousin's house.
Yeah. So next week we'll be back to 7 p.m. Central Standard Time for Monday Night Live. Now, as always, you're welcome to share this video anywhere on social media if you think it'll help people have better health, because that's what we're here to do. We're not here to make $1 million. We're here to help 1 million people get healthier. So please help us do that by sharing this video. If you didn't get enough of us tonight, you can join us tomorrow night in our private Facebook group. It's reserved for Facebook supporters and for patrons on the website patreon.com. I put a link to that down in the show notes too. So if you didn't get enough of us tonight, you can get another hour every Tuesday at 6 p.m. in the private Facebook group by becoming a Facebook supporter or a patron.
Yeah, or you could just subscribe to our YouTube channels and that'll probably be enough of us.
If you're broke as a joke, like I've been for many years, or you're annoyed, you can just subscribe and share. And that don't cost you a penny, and it helps us to help more people. Okay?
I'm pretty sure I got on that one lady's nerves. So
I think you triggered her.
I did.
She had to go to her safe space.
I have that effect sometimes.
Sometimes. It's always women too you trigger. I don't know why that is.
All right, man. Guys, make sure you follow us on all the things. We're everywhere.
Yeah.
And we will see you next week.
Thanks so much. See you later.